Hello, are you here to debate?
Yes.
All right, what's your name, age, and pronouns?
My name's Trevor. I'm 33, and he, him.
Okay, Trevor, what topic do you disagree with on the board?
A couple of them. I guess we can start with the gender affirming care for minors.
Okay, gender affirming care for minors. And why
I guess
are
it
you
comes down
against gender
to
affirming care?
I guess it comes down to I know what you're gonna say. You're gonna say, oh, there's a team of doctors and their parents are working with them.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess from my point of view, is kids say all sorts of things.
Mm-hmm.
Kids are far more imaginative than adults are. Kids live in an entirely different world than we do. So when they say things like, hey, I feel like a girl, or hey, I feel like a boy, does that necessarily mean they want to? It's just like, how do you know?
Do you know what the current criteria is to diagnose children with gender dysphoria?
I would assume whatever the DSM says.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what number we're on now.
Sure.
5?
Do you know how long we're we're on the 5th edition of the DSM. Do you know how long a child typically must undergo counseling and therapy before they're able to get that diagnosis?
Oh, it's got to be a number of years, I would assume.
It's about 6 months.
6 months. Okay.
Yep, they must show
That seems a
6
little
months
short.
of consistency, insistency, and persistency.
Okay. And is there evidence showing, because like as far as I can tell, there's no real evidence showing that post-op or even like suicidality rates aren't changing.
That's not true.
I know there's not. Well, I mean, it is though.
No, it's not. I have plenty of studies that show this.
From who?
Well, from a lot of different people. Do you want some of them?
Let's hear one.
Sure. So Cornell University did a massive literature review of about 55 studies, and their overall findings of these 55 studies on mental health is that gender affirming care has a positive mental health outcome. Specifically, of 55 of the studies, 51 indicating that transitioning had a positive effect. 4 indicated it had mixed or no results, and 0 studies indicated any negative results. That's one of them. Another would be it's called Mental Health and Gender Dysphoria, a review of the literature. This is a second systemic review of literature that used, I want to say it was 38 different longitudinal studies that found the same thing. The gender affirming care tends to have a positive mental outcome. And it actually found that transgender people had poorer mental health outcomes prior to treatment. If we want to look directly at the suicide rate, I have another one, which is on, where is it? Bing, 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 bing. 1 second, I just got to find where I put that one. I really need to organize my fucking source document, chat. That's abortion. Here we go. Trans topics. So this one was a study done. It's called Mental Health Outcomes in Transgender and Non-Binary Youths Receiving Gender Affirming Care, and they found a 73% decrease in suicidality. So yeah, we have plenty of studies and like literature reviews that show these things.
Okay. I don't know. I guess I'm just not convinced.
What would you need to convince you more? Like, what specific evidence would you need to see?
I guess it's a bias thing for me, because it feels like the public, not really. I don't really know how to explain it. It feels like the public outlook on this situation or this entire discourse has been about protecting kids the entire time. And it just seems like there's just like this group of people that are really trying to push this on children. And then, of course, there's also bad actors with parents using this to exploit their kids, and it's cringe,
Do you have
frankly.
any?
I know
Do you
it's
have
not
any of those
often,
bad actors?
but it is
Do you have any?
happening.
I haven't seen these bad actors. Do you have any of them, like offhand, that I could look at?
Well, I mean, what about that case in Texas a few years ago where the mother was trying to transition their son, and every time, and the parents were divorcing, and whenever the boy went to his dad's house, everything from all of the I can't think of the word. All of the information that came out was, saying that the kid didn't want to do this. Man, I really have to look up the
Well,
names,
like
because
the
then you would
kid,
probably
based
know
on
about
what?
it. And
Like
then
how
when
do
he
I
went
know
to
who's?
when he goes to the mom's house, she's a pediatrician. She's taking pictures of her kid in a dress sitting in her lap for her doctor's office. It was a very strange case, to say the least. And I don't think the kid wanted to do it. I think it was being pushed on by his weird mom.
But you don't have evidence of that.
And that might not be that's not the common thing, but like the group, there's children that are being hurt, and this is causing harm to them. Getting counseling is one thing, but putting a child on puberty blockers or on hormones, like these are life altering things, and it's not it's reversible. To say it's reversible, there is no way that a human can take this amount of hormones and it not have some sort of permanent side effects on their body.
I just want to point out something really quickly. If this is the case that I'm looking at here of what you're saying, the state literally investigated the mom in 2019 and found nothing. They ruled out all child abuse. They found nothing.
Of course.
So but this was Texas. Texas is an anti-trans state. The state
it wasn't
investigated.
Texas.
Then where was it? You said it was
Texas. It was in Texas. No,
yeah.
It was in Texas. That is the case.
Yeah, so
definitely the case.
If the state of Texas is investigating and they're finding no child abuse, they're finding nothing, like what? I'm just going to believe the dad?
I don't know.
But
I don't know who to believe anymore. But,
maybe
we can move on from the only other thing that because I'm not.
But don't you think? Don't you think really quickly?
We're not going to be able to get to the end to.
I just want to. Well, yeah, but okay. I want to point out two things. One, don't you think your bias might be leaning you on who you believe in this case? Like you've already admitted you have a bias. Don't you think your bias might be leading you to believe who you want to believe in the case? And secondly, when we say that we're going to agree to disagree, the way agree to disagree needs to work, in my opinion, is two sides present facts. Those facts both have validity to them, and the two sides just can't come to an understanding on where those facts lead. But in this case, I've presented you with facts, and you've
how about this? You mentioned those studies before. I'll look at those, and I can come to my own after that. That way, it doesn't have to be an agree to disagree. It can be, I agree to look at what you've told me about and read into it.
Okay.
It's better than trying to go back and forth when I don't have the studies in front of me. Okay. The only other thing that I didn't really agree with on your list is the systemic racism is real. So you think that there's a systemic racism in America, right? With this in America?
Yeah, absolutely.
Even now?
Yes.
How so? Explain it to me.
Well, before I do,
what rights are not afforded to minorities?
Let me ask. I'll get into all that. Let me ask you a question. Did systemic racism used to exist?
Back during Jim Crow, definitely.
Okay. What year did it end?
Well, that was a different. Well, I mean, what was that? The 60s is when the civil rights movement started, right? Or hit its head, or came to a head.
Okay.
During the 60s.
So it ended in the 60s.
I wouldn't say ended, because it definitely didn't end in the 60s, but I would say now, in 2025, in modern times, I don't see how there's any systemic forms other than somebody's personal bias, which I wouldn't say that somebody's say somebody owns a business and they don't want to hire somebody because they're part of some minority group, which is ridiculous, obviously. But wouldn't say that that's not systemic. That's just somebody being a clown.
But this is my thing. If we're saying
Like, I don't think there's anything in the
racism,
government that is preventing people. If anything, affirmative action is helping minorities.
affirmative action primarily helped white women. They received the bulk of benefits from affirmative action.
Well, I mean, we can blame feminism for that.
Why would I?
But at the same time, like, affirmative action is literally designed. I mean, if you want my actual opinion on affirmative action, is like it's racist. It's just racist in the other direction.
Okay, so when we had a country that refused to hire black people for jobs or would force black people into like low paying jobs, you think it was racist to create a policy that prevented that?
We don't have that anymore.
We don't.
So it's not needed.
We don't. Have you seen the studies about when people apply for jobs and they have traditionally black sounding names?
Let's hear it, because most job applications are handled by AI now, and it's some sort of automated system. So you think that these systems have something programmed into them?
Yeah, you haven't seen the studies on how AI has like bias towards black people? You haven't seen those?
No.
That exists too. So we can go through both of them. So first of all, there's the same name study, which is a study on same name and hiring practices, and it found that when people had traditionally black sounding names on a resume, they were passed over, even when the resume was the exact same, they were passed over for the white sounding names, like en masse.
For what reason?
Because their names sounded black. The resumes were the exact same.
To the AI. The AI is able to distinguish somebody's race based on their name.
Hold on. So these were people, right? But do you know how AI works? AI is trained. So if AI notices that the typical amount of resumes that are chosen via white sounding names, they're going to prioritize those resumes. That's just how AI works. AI is trained on like human models. But when we looked at hiring practices, you're 30% more likely to get hired if the worker is perceived to be white compared to their black counterparts. 30% more likely to be hired.
And this is across the country.
Yeah.
It doesn't. I mean, does it seem okay in the real world? Does that seem true to you?
Yes.
When you go out.
Yes.
When you go out to the store. When you go out to places.
Yes.
It really does, huh? Where do you? If you don't mind me asking, what state do you live in?
Well, I'm in Florida, but this is gonna be true like everywhere, and this is just one.
In Florida.
This is just one example. I can give you a litany of examples of other systemically racist practices that we have in the country.
Okay.
Thank you, Boo.
Yeah, have you heard of the Veil of Darkness study?
Let's hear it. I've never heard of the Veil of Darkness, no.
Cool. So Stanford, the college, did a study on traffic stops in the United States. What they did is they looked at 9 million traffic stops across the country. And they looked at places where, like, you know how like daylight savings time, like sometimes if I'm leaving work at 5 p.m., it'll be light outside. Sometimes it'll be dark outside, even though it's the same time of day. So they looked at that same time of day.
Yep.
They analyzed who was being pulled over via traffic stops. And they found that when it's light outside, black drivers are more likely to be pulled over versus their white counterparts at a rate of about 16 times. So they're 16 times more likely to be pulled over. And then when it's dark outside and cops can't see the drivers, those rates even out. So the rates become even again once the cops can't see who's driving the car anymore. They accounted for everything else. So they accounted for type of car. They accounted for location. That's why they analyzed it using, I think it was 34 municipalities and 20 to 40 states, I think. 9 million stops. They analyzed whether a ticket was given. They analyzed the reason for the stop, all of this. The only conclusion that can be determined here is that when it's light out and the cops can see that it's a black person driving the car, they're more likely to pull over the car. This would be an example of racism.
And you think they're trained to do that?
Do I think they're trained to do that?
Because that sounds to me like less of a systemic problem and more of a these guys are racist problem.
If a system keeps hiring racist
because they're not being trained at the academy to be racist.
Thank you, Boo.
Yeah, if the system...
They're not at the academy saying, hey, you need to pull over these black guys.
If the system is consistently hiring racist people, why would I not look at the system?
The system is consistently hiring racist people.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you vet for that?
How do you
It's
vet
not like
for
you can sit
racism?
somebody down and be like, "Hey, are you racist?"
Well, I mean, DEI.
I mean,
and
they might tell you the truth.
teaching. It might be the case that teaching diversity, right, and having diversity in a system might benefit the system.
Teaching
from
diversity, what does that mean?
teaching about other cultures and teaching about the ingrained racism that exists in our systems and things like that.
Well,
Might benefit.
it's not uniquely our culture. All cultures are racist to other cultures, for the most part.
What does that have to do with what I'm saying here?
Well, you're saying that we need to teach people about other cultures. I mean, what? So how is teaching police about other cultures going to prevent them from pulling people over?
It will cause them to think. Well, if we have implemented pretty substantial diversity, equity, and inclusion practices, including trainings and seminars and things like that, it will teach people to unlearn biases that they have.
Thanks for doing this work.
Oh.
So
you think that's possible?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do I think it's possible to unlearn biases? Yes.
All right. It's not a you don't okay. So you don't think any behavior like that, like I'm not like I'm trying to play devil's advocate. You don't think you actually
don't need an advocate, friend.
It's crazy to me. It's crazy that you actually think that they're hiring these guys because they're racist, or they just happen to be racist in mass, therefore it's a systemic thing.
I think the system welcomes racism because black bodies are commodified for our labor, and that's why black people overwhelmingly exist inside of our prison system. When we look at like the numbers per capita, black people severely outnumber the population percentage in prison.
Well, don't they commit
labor?
Well, aren't African Americans as a group committing more crimes?
No.
Like, isn't there data on that from the Bureau?
Yes, white people commit the most crimes.
White people commit the most crimes.
Yes.
Yeah, but who commits the most violent crimes?
White people.
That are going to result in jail time.
White people.
Since when?
Since forever.
Because I can look up the FBI statistics right now.
Yes, so can I. Go to their violent
unless
crime
those
table.
are lies.
No, go to their violent crime table and look at the percentage of who commits the most violent crime. It's white people.
Then why are they not? So why are they not being incarcerated?
Violent crime.
Then?
White people commit 58.7% of all violent crime. But if you want to know why they're not being incarcerated, we can. I'm going to tell you, it's a pretty simple answer. It's racism. If we look at the Sentencing Bureau, which analyzes pretty much every federal sentence and most state sentencing in the country, what we see is when black people and white people commit the same crime and they come from the same socioeconomic background and it's a first-time offense, black people still receive more heavier and longer prison sentences. We can look at that, like the what is it? The Sentencing Bureau says it's what did they say? 14 times longer. I'd have to pull it up again. But yeah,
I can believe
what other reason would that be?
I can believe that. I've witnessed that in real life. I can believe that.
That's
I just never thought of it as systemic. Just thought of it as people being a-holes.
No, it's the criminal justice system. That's why black people, again, overwhelmingly, and because when we look at the people who are in jail, overwhelmingly prison sentences are for drug crimes. That's like the number one biggest reason people are in jail is for drug crimes. And
I know. And if it was up to me, drugs would just be legal, and you can let people decide for themselves if they want to kill themselves.
Yeah, 100%. But if we look at drug crimes, white people commit 70.6% of all drug abuse violations. They only make up about 13%, I think, of people in prison for drug crime.
Yeah, rich white kids getting off. I get that.
Whereas black people engage in 38% of 30-something percent.
So then how? Okay.
27. I'm sorry, 27% of all drug crimes, and they make up upwards of 63% of the people incarcerated for drug crimes.
Then how do we wind up, like, this is going to sound cliche as fuck, but how do we wind up with Barack Obama? Like, he was able to skate through
Did
the
we not
cracks.
see how racist people were towards Barack Obama?
Oh yeah, I know.
There was
but like he got
a whole
elected, so the
swath
majority of the
people in this
nation
country who
obviously
still
was not racist.
no, just because the majority voted for him doesn't mean that like racism doesn't exist in the system. I mean, remember there was a whole swath of people, major people inside the Republican Party as well, who still believe he's not from this country just because he's black and his name is Obama.
Yeah, well, that's because they're idiots. Because there's idiots like everybody in our government it's a clown show. It's a circus. It's not real.
Yeah, but if we have
Trump is the biggest as a result of our nation's culture failing.
Well, yeah, and I would just say Trump
Clearly.
is another example of how like the racists were so mad that they voted in Obama that they voted in Trump right afterwards.
He lost in 2016 or no, 2020, my bad.
And then he won again. Because
Yeah,
he was going
I
up
don't know
against a
how.
black woman. Do you notice how the only time Trump
Well,
lost was
she
when he
wasn't
didn't go up
exactly
against a
okay.
woman?
To be fair, I don't know if Kamala was the strongest candidate for the Democratic Party.
I will agree with this. But she was stronger than Trump. Iraq is.
I mean, she kind of got in on. We could go into the whole how Kamala was put up as their nominee, but let's
She was
not.
put up as but let's do. She was put up as the nominee because the rules of the DNC are if an incumbent president drops out of the race, the nominee goes to their vice president because their vice president has already been voted in by the party historically, and Kamala has had the name on the campaign fund, so she could utilize the campaign funds that were for her and Biden's campaign. That's the delegates all voted for her. I think she got like every single delegate vote.
Since she was on the ticket.
Yes. She was already on the ticket.
That's how it works.
The Democrats already voted for her. They already said, and when you vote for a president, you vote for the understanding that if they fail or they're kicked out or whatever, their vice president takes over. So we voted for Biden. Democrats voted heavily for Biden with the understanding that if anything happens to Biden, Harris is taking over. Just like,
did you want him to? Do you think he wanted to drop out?
No, but that's because I think he has a fucking ego. I don't like that man. I think he's.
Oh yeah, 100%. I think Joe Biden is one of the most racist actors in the government right now.
Sure, I think like everybody over the age of 80 is probably like super racist. You know, I think it's gonna be hard to find a person over the age of 80 that's not like racist. But not when
you're the leader of the free world.
Yeah, but who was he? He was up against another racist. So if I have two people up against each other that are both racists, no matter what I do, I'm stuck with a racist.
Thank you, Boo.
You know what? I think it's starting to convince me a little bit, man. I'm not really conservative. I just never really thought about it like that until right now.
Well, you know.
So kudos for that.
Critical thinking is a good thing, yeah.
I'm gonna let you go.
Okay.
I'll let you go with the win. Kudos.
Okay. A win's a win, I guess, chat.